quiz, hotshot. There's a bomb on a bus. Once the bus goes 50 miles an hour, the bomb is armed. If it drops below 50, it blows up. What do you do? What do you do?
A high concept is a story premise simple enough to be expressed in 1 or 2 sentences. A hook that's easy to pitch to producers and easy to market to audiences. What if there were a big shark? What if there were dinosaurs in modern times? What if there were snakes on a plane?
I have had it with these monkey-fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane!
Even though the premise for Speed is actually 3 sentences, it's a textbook high-concept premise, one that's captured the imagination of a whole generation of moviegoers.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
Pop quiz, hotshot. It's a classic line.
Et Sandra Bullock est dans l'autobus. Il y a une bombe dans l'autobus.
When your little friend gets to over 4 miles an hour, then the bomb will be armed.
And if its speed dropped, it would explode.
What do you do? What do you do?
I think it was called The Bus That Couldn't Slow Down.
That was the film Speed in French, which in France was called La Vitesse. Or at least it should have been, but in fact it was called Speed.
Even if you haven't seen Speed, you're probably familiar with this premise. So, if you were to watch the film for the first time now, you might be surprised to discover it begins like this.
All right, gentlemen, what we have here are 13 passengers in an express elevator. Bomb's already taken out cable. Bomber wants $3 million or he blows the emergency brakes.
Okay, I'm cheating a bit with this one. Instead of one scene, I want to talk about this whole set piece. The elevator sequence is a thrilling opener for an action blockbuster. According to producer Mark Gordon, it's the strength of this opening which sold the script to the studio. But what's interesting is, narratively speaking, it's unusually elaborate for this kind of film. The old adage of screenwriting is get to the point as quickly as possible. Put your inciting incident on page 1, if not sooner. And if you've sold your movie on a high-concept premise, the last thing you want is for your audience to start wondering, hold on, are we in the right screen? I thought this film was about buses. Now, you may be thinking, slow down, Wildcat. Obviously, they can't just start the film on the bus. We need a bit of context, time to meet the characters, and learn why we should care about them. If you want the audience to accept the premise, there's a bomb on a bus, we need to establish why there's a bomb on a bus. Well, maybe. The elevator sequence does introduce most of the key characters, including the hero and villain, and it does some valuable character work with them. But it's nothing you necessarily need to know before introducing the bomb on the bus. You could establish this stuff once the bus is already in motion. Do some flashbacks if you really have to, or at least introduce this stuff in a way that also lays groundwork for the bus. Instead, the elevator sequence introduces a completely different high-concept premise. You could base a whole film on this idea. Some have tried, including The Shaft, directed by Dick Maas. Mijn excuses aan de mensen van Nederland. So, while Speed arguably has the best execution of the trapped in an elevator idea, as an opener for the bus movie, it's a very inefficient way to get to the point. Before the film can even begin to explain why there's a bomb on a bus, it must first explain why there's a bomb on an elevator. And then it needs a palate cleanser to ease the tension before the bus can ramp it up again. It all takes quite a bit of time. Just look at other action blockbusters which focus on one high-concept set piece. Die Hard on a plane, Die Hard in the White House, Die Hard in your own house, Die Hard on the president's plane, Die Hard in a phone booth, Die Hard on another plane, and, that one in an office block. The name escapes me. Some of these open with a bit of preamble, and some have a lot of build before the action gets going, but all of them arrive at their main setting in under 15 minutes. Even Speed's mistake of a sequel does it in 9 minutes 10. But in Speed, we don't get to the bus until gone half an hour, a whole quarter of the movie. Not very speedy at all. As thrilling and entertaining as the elevator sequence is, it's an odd choice for this film. Why didn't screenwriter Graham Yost put the bus as close to the beginning as possible? Well, here's the thing. In his first draft, that's exactly what he did.
My brother and I grew up in a household where my parents just talked about movies and books. One was, can you think of any movie that had a great idea but didn't really work, but the idea was solid? And so he would come up with things that occasionally, but then he told me about a script he'd heard about that Kurosawa had written that had never been produced, about a train that couldn't slow down or it would blow up. And finally it was made by Andrei Konchalovsky. It's an okay film. It is, but it's a train, it's in Alaska, it's prison escapees. It's not that it'll blow up, they just can't get to the brakes. And I saw it and I went, it was good. But it'd be better if it was a bus. And it'd be better if there was a bomb.
The first script, originally titled Minimum Speed, seems to have had the same basic structure as the finished film, only without the elevator.
When I first was thinking the idea, there was no elevator sequence at the beginning. Initially, I just focused on the bomb and the bus.
Mad Bomber phones the police. There's a bomb on a bus. It'll blow if the bus drops below 20 miles per hour.
And I told that to a writing friend in Canada, and he said, make it faster, make it 50.
And there's only one man who can stop it. In this draft, our hero Jack was more of a renegade.
I had a painkiller-addicted cop with a knee brace and a cane.
He tracks down the bus, finds a way aboard, but is too late to stop the bomb arming. Next thing, oh no, bus driver is taken out of action.
Originally, the bus driver had a heart attack just because he was freaked out.
A passenger is forced to take the driver's place.
The woman who takes over driving the bus was going to be a African-American paramedic ambulance driver.
With support from Jack's partner Harry over radio, they navigate the bus through traffic, red lights, and other obstacles to reach the parking lot of Dodgers Stadium.
I just looked at a map and went, where could you drive in a big circle? And it was like, oh, the parking lot at Dodger Stadium. That makes sense.
I'm guessing this is where they offload all the passengers. Either way, before Jack can disembark, we learn the bomber is actually working for somebody else.
I felt that one of the most important characters in a movie like this is the bad guy, and I thought, boy, they don't spend any time together, really. The hero and the bad guy. And I thought, hey, what if we find out that his partner is the bad guy?
Plot twist, Harry is the real bomber. The bus is forced back onto the streets and up the hills, but Jack manages to defeat Harry and save the girl, just in time for the bus to explode into the Hollywood sign. Big finish, end of movie. The script was first bought by Paramount, and, to begin with, things looked promising. But the project remained in development for quite some time. They struggled to find a director. They struggled to cast the lead roles. Until finally, Paramount put the project into turnaround after giving a very dispiriting note.
And it was at Paramount they said, yeah, too much bus. So, can something else happen?
This is the worst kind of note to receive. Hey, you know that high concept you've built your whole movie around? We're not sure it can hold an audience's attention for 120 minutes. Got anything else? Addressing this note means compromising the whole point of the movie. You'd have to chip away at the work you've already done, insert something completely different, and somehow make it feel like it's part of the same thing. But when the chances of your movie even getting made are riding on this, what do you do?
What do you do?
According to some sources, by which I mean Wikipedia, even when Fox picked up the project, it was under the condition other action sequences would be added. It seems there was a lot of anxiety that audiences would get bored with just the bus. Just look at the trailer.
Speed.
Though it includes the whole bus pitch.
There's a bomb on a bus. Once the bus goes 50 miles an hour, the bomb is armed.
More than half of the footage shown is taken from other parts of the movie. There's almost as much here about the elevator.
All right, gentlemen, what we have here are 13 passengers in an express elevator. Bomb's already taken out cables. Bomber wants $3 million or he blows the emergency brakes.
It feels like they were keen to sell the film as being about more than just the bus. Maybe it is true the bus sequence wouldn't have sustained a whole movie. Speed isn't like other examples of its genre. Even an office block or an aeroplane can have multiple sets. There's no variety on a bus. That said, Yost is clearly a skilled action writer. the finished bus sequence does an expert job of varying up the main tension. Then again, the film may have benefited from the bus sequence being shortened. Only the best bits survived the cut. Maybe studios would be less nervous about the idea today. At the time, most single-set films were character dramas, often adapted from plays. Nowadays, there are a lot more examples of high-concept genre flicks on single sets. That said, these tend to be thriller horrors rather than edge-of-your-seat action movies, so maybe it would still be a challenge. Either way, this was the note. So how do you incorporate it without breaking the whole movie? One thing Yost did was replace the climactic sequence. The final showdown against the bomber now takes place on a runaway subway train. It's not too tricky to make this work. It's thematically similar, and so long as you properly pay off all the tension with the bus beforehand, it plays nicely as a "it's not over yet" raising of stakes. But this wasn't enough to keep Paramount interested. A case of be careful what you wish for.
Well, I think that once I added the subway sequence, they decided it was no longer a low-budget movie.
Needless to say, the other addition was the elevator sequence. But figuring out what point in development this was added is where the timeline gets a little fuzzy. We don't know how much time passed between Paramount's too much bus note and putting the script into turnaround, but some accounts suggest it was during this time the elevator sequence was added, same time as the subway sequence. Likewise, you could also imagine this is one of the extra action sequences added when the script moved to Fox. According to Yost, the elevator sequence was his idea.
And I didn't have an opening sequence. And then I thought, well, you know what? I need some other kind of public transportation or conveyance thing that could be put in jeopardy. And I came up with the elevator thing.
But it's not clear when he made this choice, or why. Was it his own writerly instinct? Was it because of a studio note? Or was it suggested by the director? Jan de Bont, who was attached to the project by Paramount, claims the elevator was his idea, based on his own experience.
The reason that I came up with this whole elevator scene, I once myself got stuck in an elevator. The fire department came and took us out via the top, and we had to climb out and jump from one elevator to the other elevator. And that whole feeling of claustrophobia, I thought this would be ideal for for my movie.
Which isn't implausible. Many of de Bont's ideas made it into the film. The famous freeway jump, for instance, was one of his. But to make matters even more confusing, producer Mark Gordon says it was the strength of the elevator sequence that convinced him to join the project in the first place.
I was so floored by the first 20 pages, which was the elevator sequence. The rest of the script was really good too, but it really grabbed me right from the beginning.
Gordon joined the project right from the start, before de Bont was attached and even before Paramount was involved. So, was the elevator sequence added before Gordon, after de Bont, at Paramount, or at Fox? Who knows? These accounts are all recollections made years after the fact. Speed was in development for a long time, so it's not surprising some of the details have gotten muddled.
It was at Paramount where they said...
We never changed it at Paramount. We didn't change it till Fox.
We changed it at Paramount.
We put the subway in.
We changed it at Paramount.
I thought the subway
came... We put the subway in at Paramount.
You're kidding.
No.
I didn't remember that.
But here's my hunch. It's probably true a version of the elevator sequence was added fairly early, presumably in the draft Gordon read. But I expect it was quite different from the final version. For one thing, it was surely much shorter. With Harry as the villain, it presumably focused on introducing Jack's partnership with him. Bomber Howard Payne, originally Harry's accomplice, might have been present, but much less prominently. For instance, while the finished film introduces the bomber in the very first scene, earlier drafts did not.
Now, this is the way that the script used to start. It was just people getting on the elevator.
In the original script, we didn't have Screwdriver in the ear. I will say this.
It was the elevator bomb which gave original Jack his cane and pill addiction.
And then Jack is severely injured in the original script.
So, in this version, he doesn't actually need to stop the bomber. Maybe he didn't even save the people. Or at least, not all of them.
The original, it was a woman who died, right?
There was a woman who died.
There was a woman who died. It was not Harry who was the original hostage.
My guess is, people get trapped in the elevator. Jack and Harry rock up. Maybe we see a bit of the bomber, they save some people, but not all, and Jack gets caught in the blast. Simple, tragic backstory stuff. Not to mention, quick. But if you want to reduce time spent on the bus, and you don't want to add any more new stuff, the only thing left to do is expand what's already there. which is awkward in a different way. The elevator sequence was already doing everything it needed to do. Making it longer means making it slower. You're essentially padding it out with pointless stuffing. And the last thing you want for your high-octane action movie is for the opening to drag. For instance, you could add more action. That's always fun. It makes sense to wring out as much as you can from your set piece. Detonate a second bomb, nearly squash Jack into the ceiling, suspend the elevator from a collapsing cable winch, another de Bont idea, and even have Jack face down the bomber with a hostage. That's all good stuff, right? The trouble is, even the most thrilling action can drag if it's all in service of one simple narrative beat. The central conflict gets boring if it doesn't change. It's too much bus all over again. Furthermore, if the purpose of the elevator sequence is to establish Jack's tragic backstory, there's a limit to how much tension you can build. All this added action is much less satisfying if the people wind up dying anyway. But once the project went to Fox, the script underwent several changes. The paramedic bus driver became Annie, an ordinary girl whose license had been revoked for speeding. They couldn't get Dodger Stadium, but changing it to LAX Airport had unexpected benefits. And most crucially, they finally cast Jack. Yost had based his original idea for Jack on Jeff Bridges' performance in Cutter's Way. They'd been considering actors like Stephen Baldwin, Tom Cruise, Wesley Snipes, Woody Harrelson. At that time, Keanu Reeves was most famous for Bill and Ted.
Excellent! To me, he represented something too young, too cool, hippie. He's represented too much the grunge look for too long. I felt like he had to grow up. In this movie, he is really coming of age.
Despite Reeves' performance in Point Break, there were concerns whether he'd be convincing as a cop. He was certainly too young to sell the battle-scarred renegade Yost had written, but shave his head, and he might sell an upstart rookie.
My whole premise, basically, is that heroes in literature aren't necessarily the fastest, the smartest, the strongest, whatever, but they're clever, and they figure out the trick. They figure out how to beat the bad guy not just through strength, or even by being more intelligent, but just by being something that the bad guy doesn't see. And that's Perseus with Medusa and the shield. So I wanted Jack to be one of those guys who's able to figure out the trick.
No! With this premise, Yost can turn the elevator sequence from a defeat into a victory for Jack. With a positive payoff, we can afford to build more tension. And Yost uses this tension to establish a more nuanced aspect of Jack's character. Firstly, he's a problem solver. He has a reliable instinct.
He's here. He could have blown that thing from Pacoima. He knew we were up to something.
He finds inventive solutions.
Sure, it'll hold! It'll hold!
But he's also arrogant. He doesn't have the experience to understand his own fallibility.
Yeah, we're good. No, you were lucky. No, we were lucky.
And his success sets him up for a fall.
Do you listen? Do you ever? Because I am not going to be around to back you up.
Reeves himself also pushed for the character to be changed, in particular, the dialogue.
The character of Jack Traven was very flippant. There were situations set up for one-liners and I felt it was forced. Die Hard mixed with some kind of screwball comedy. I dealt with the LAPD before on Point Break, and the thing that came off is their concern for human life. And with that basic tenet, I began with Jack.
To assist with these changes, Fox commissioned a number of rewrites with other screenwriters. One in particular had a huge impact on the final script. This writer was uncredited. I guess we'll just never know who it was. What a pity. Regardless, this writer contributed one line in particular that would become crucial to the film. While developing the elevator sequence, Yost had the idea for Harry, being older and more experienced, to try and relax Jack by distracting him with a SWAT-based brain teaser.
Airport, gunman with one hostage. He's using her for cover. He's almost to a plane.
I had him quizzing Jack. Okay, what would you do if? It was just, there was no lead in. It was just like, okay, here's another scenario.
The uncredited writer simplified this with just one line.
All right, pop quiz.
Which became a catchphrase repeated throughout the movie.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
Pop quiz, asshole.
This one line creates the foundation of Jack's character arc. he responds to Harry's puzzle with an outside-the-box solution.
Shoot the hostage. What? Take her out of the equation. Go for the good wound and you can't get to the plane with her. You're deeply nuts, you know that?
Against the elevator problem, this approach works.
No, we just take them out of the equation.
And the bus sequence repeatedly tests Jack's method, until eventually he finds himself in a situation where it won't save him.
What are you gonna do, Jack? I don't think you can shoot her.
Guts will get you so far and then they'll get you killed.
But just as importantly, this simple catchphrase helps sell the whole premise of the film.
And we used to have a line, do you remember, between Joe Morton and his assistant Norwood? He's just heard about the threat, and he was supposed to say, "You've got to be kidding," because I wanted to address head on that it was an absurd idea.
It was the stupidest thing anyone has ever
Norwood,
heard.
and you know what?
Fast talking Joe.
People just went for it.
It frames the bus as another brain teaser the bomber is setting for Jack. It's easier to accept how contrived the situation is because we understand it as a test. A madman's game using real people as the playing pieces.
There are rules, Jack, and I want you to get this right.
It's not simple revenge. The bomber wants to prove this smart aleck hasn't made a fool of him. The elevator and the bus become more closely connected. Rounds 1 and 2 in the same battle of wits. And this is where the final piece falls into place. Up until now, Harry was still written to be the ultimate bad guy, the twist in the third act. But then, only 2 or 3 months before filming began, they get another note from the studio.
Finally, the studio just balked and said, no, just make it one bad guy from beginning to end.
The Harry twist existed because Yost feared Jack wouldn't interact with the villain enough before the final showdown. But now we've expanded the elevator sequence. Is that still true? With Payne as the only villain, having a bit of extra detail here suddenly becomes very valuable. The final version of the elevator sequence can be divided into 2 parts. The first part is everything with the passenger elevator. This could serve as an opening all by itself. I can imagine before the villain switched, this was pretty much what the elevator sequence looked like. It does everything we've already discussed. We get to know Jack, we meet Harry, pop quiz, hotshot, tons of action, and a satisfying payoff. But then, the second part ramps that tension right back up again. It can do that by shifting the central conflict. It's the same problem, bomb on an elevator, only now it's focused more intensely on our 3 major players. Instead of nameless hostages, it's Harry in danger. This time, it's personal.
See, I'm in charge here. I drop this stick, and they pick your friend up with a sponge. Are you ready to die, friend?
And now, Jack gets actual face time with his new nemesis. It's still true they spend most of the film apart, but this one showdown does everything we need. Forget the complexity of the bait and switch, this is simple animosity. Jack ruined Payne's plans, Payne threatened Jack's friend. Let that all play out in one very intense confrontation.
There will come a time, boy, when you'll wish you never met me.
Mister, I'm already there.
So when Jack and Payne face off again, their conflict is already potent enough. We understand exactly why this matters to both of them.
Why didn't you just come after me?
No, this is about me. This is about my money. This is about money due me.
When I find you.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
This only works because the elevator sequence is as involved as it is. Because we already understand that Jack cares about Harry. Because we've already seen Jack ruin Payne's day. Because we've already been told how Jack thinks he would respond to this kind of situation. And now we find out whether he will put his theory into practice.
Shoot the hostage.
Say goodbye, Harry.
It's notable Harry is the only person Jack shoots in the entire film. And it's not to kill him, it's to save him. Granted, Jack also decapitates Payne with a passing subway signal, but never mind that. This introduction is the perfect setup for an action hero who cares less about killing bad guys than he does about saving lives.
Look, I'm putting my gun away, okay? Okay? Now listen. I don't care about your crime. Whatever you did, I'm sure that you're sorry.
We'll never know whether Speed would have worked just as well without the elevator sequence. Either way, it's a masterclass in how to incorporate a studio note which ought to break the premise of your film. and it sort of did break the film. The whole plot ended up changing around it. But it works for the same reasons the rest of the film works, because it's built in the same way. It's like an overture. It has all the same beats as what's yet to come. Passengers are trapped in a vehicle with a bomb. Jack overcomes a series of obstacles to keep the passengers safe, until he finds an innovative solution to get the passengers out of harm's way. And does it just in the nick of time. But right when he thinks he's safe, the conflict intensifies. Someone he cares about is placed in more immediate danger, putting his wits to the ultimate test. It's not repetition, it's rhyme. The rest of the film is made stronger because it builds on the foundation the elevator sequence lays down. The stakes are higher, the obstacles are more complicated, the solutions are harder to find, the losses are real, Pain is even angrier, and Jack will have to be even smarter to wriggle his way out of this one. But ultimately, the elevator sequence works for the same reason anything works: good storytelling. The elevator sequence tells a similar story to the bus, but compressed. As an opening, it might be longer than you'd expect, but as an action story, it goes at a breakneck pace. It's got stakes, drama, heroes, villains, curveballs, near misses, everything you want from your high-concept action flick, but also handling them in a way that grabs your attention and holds it. And when you're this entertained, you don't mind waiting for a bus. Pop quiz, hotshot. There's a YouTube video that's the bomb. If you hit the like button, the share button, or leave a comment, the video blows up. You can get aboard the channel by hitting subscribe and ringing the bell. And if you support the channel using patreon.com/JamesWoodall or ko-fi.com/JamesWoodall, the channel keeps going. And if you follow @JamesBWoodall on Twitter, you can get future updates. What do you do? What do you do?